Do you want me?
Payne, and I'm here on behalf of the Montgomery Hackett Post 72 American Legion Smithsonian Veterans History Project. And here with me today is
Cliff Snyder.
What's your birthday, Cliff?
Clifford.
What's your birthday?
Oh, 3/26/25.
And also here today is Alan Greczynske, who's operating the camera, and Nikia Greczynske, who is our overall technical expert.
Good.
Now, Cliff, as we talked about it before, we'll just get started and you can go right ahead and describe your career in the military.
Sure.
I'll just start off with, were you drafted or did you enlist?
No, I was drafted, and I reported for service in June, about the first week of June of 1944. And I went to Albany with my suitcase in case I passed. I went right on to wherever you were assigned, which was, I went through. And the funny thing, a part of it, after I passed my physical, you walk through a line and they say, which service do you prefer, the Marines, the Navy, or the Army? And I said, Marines. And they named Army. Next, they had a quota to meet that day, so that's how they worked it back in those days. Then they loaded us on a bus, took us down to the railroad station in Albany, and we took the train down to Fort Dix, New Jersey. And there they assigned us to an area where you got your clothes and everything you needed. I was there about 3 days, and then they sent me on to Fort McClellan, Alabama, in IRTC training, which is Infantry Replacement Training Center. And it was a 17-week training period, and you wound up as a replacement for divisions that had casualties. And right during this time, they invaded, D-Day occurred, and they had a tremendous amount of casualties. So they actually shortened our training to 15 weeks. So I came home after the 15 weeks. They gave you 10 days to report to Fort Meade, Maryland.
When you came home, where'd you come home to? Where were you living?
Well, Saugerties here. Yes, I was born and brought up in a little community called Highwoods out here in the countryside. And I came back and I spent a few days with my mother, and then I went on down to Fort Meade, Maryland. And there they again issued all your clothing you required in Europe. And they also issued an M1 rifle, and you carried all this stuff with you. At the same time, they gave you a folder with your records in it. And you carried that with you until you were assigned to a company. So we went from there to Camp Shanks, New York, which is down below West Point. And we shipped out, and we landed in England. I can't think of the base or the port right now. Liverpool. And then we landed there in the afternoon, and then we took a train down to Southampton, and the following night we went across the English Channel.
How did it feel? How did you feel about that? Were you ever in a foreign country before?
No, never been. I haven't even been to Canada, for God's sake. But then we landed there in La Havre, and the Lucky Strike, Camp Lucky Strike, was on the hill right above La Havre, and we walked up to it.
Was there signs of war damage around the area?
Oh yes, in fact, going up the hill to Lucky Strike, the road wasn't even open. There was debris from bombings and that in the roadway. And you had to walk around it. They couldn't use vehicles to take you up there. And it was funny, 17 months later when I came back the same route, and that debris was still there. The French, as long as they have a bottle of wine and a loaf of bread, they're happy. So then from there we took a train up to Paris, and we had a nice train going up to Paris. When we got there, they loaded us on boxcars, and we went from there on up to Vith, Belgium. And there they had a place where they assigned you to the various divisions. Now this was on the 18th of December, and the bulge broke on the 16th. So that the bulge was coming right towards them. The Germans were coming pretty fast.
And you already knew that this
We weren't
offensive
even
was
aware
on?
of the bulge.
You were not aware of
until
it?
we got there, you know.
Okay.
And they were packing their records up, getting ready to move out. So they gave each one of us a towel. They said, there's a village bath down here. Go take a shower and clean up. And tomorrow morning, there'll be vehicles coming in. And on the front of each vehicle, they'll have a number as to how many men they want. You take your records and your clothing, whatever you got, your duffel bag, hop on a vehicle and take off. So it just so happened that a Jeep came along and I was in the front at this point. You know, quite a few guys had already gone. And this vehicle pulled up and it had number 2 on it. So 2 of us jumped on the vehicle. And we were shipped up to the 83rd Infantry Division as replacement in Luxembourg. And I was in the 3rd Army under Patton there.
Did you see evidence of casualties on our side at that point? Had you seen any?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
We did see some, they had an enclosure there where the 106th Infantry Division was spread out along the battlefield there when they broke through. They were inexperienced, they'd never been in combat. Some of them didn't even have their Cosmoline out of their rifles yet. And I guess they locked them up because they just ran off, you know, but you couldn't blame them really. And they had a few of them locked up there in an enclosure. But outside of that, once in a while you'd see an ambulance go by or something. But the 3rd Army was kind of at a standstill, and they were, at that point in time, that they were looking at possibly just laying over till spring, because the snow had started. Oh, it is snow. Oh, God. They said it was the worst winter that they had in Europe in 40 years. And so we get up there and they issue us mud packs. And about the 23rd, I think it was.
What's a mud pack?
There were boots that were half leather and half rubber leather, you know, like hunting boots you see. Yeah. And they started us marching towards to Belgium. And we weren't far from Belgium. But we had these mud packs on the first day, and we all had blisters. So as soon as our duffel bags came up, we put our combat boots back on. And that's what we wore the rest of the campaign. And then at that time, Eisenhower called all the generals together and asked each one of them, the Army generals, you know, like the 3rd Army, the 1st Army, the 9th, the 7th, and whatever was there, and the British, how soon they could move 3 or 4 divisions into Belgium. And they were all saying, well, a week, 2 weeks. Patton already had us going. We were marching up there. He got to Patton, he said, well, how long will it take you? He said, 2 days. He said, we'll be there. So they took the 30th, the 29th, the 83rd, and the 4th Armored. 4th Armored went up first. They went into Bastogne. And our battalion, 1st Battalion of the 330th Infantry, which I was in, they were assigned to protect the roadway going in case the Germans tried to come back and cut them off. And so we were there about 3 days. The 4th Armored went right into Bastogne and relieved the 101st. And then they pulled us out.
Did you come under enemy fire at any point yet?
Yeah, just small arms, small arms. We had no one wounded in our squad at that point in time. Then they pulled us out and they shipped us up to St. Vith. There's a network of railroad and roadways coming into St. Vith, which is the main artery that the Germans wanted to maintain open in order to get supplies into the bulge, you know. And we cut that off. There was 4 or 5 divisions up there. And once we cut them off, then we went into a holding position there for approximately, well, I guess a week or so.
You had to actually make infantry assault against the enemy? You did?
Yeah, yeah, in 2 or 3 instances. And then we had, they sent patrols out at night. It was kind of scary at night because it was snowing very hard. The skies, the Air Force was grounded. They just couldn't fly. And we did a lot of patrol work at that time. And a couple times it got a little hairy. because we usually did that at night, you know. And then we got an assignment to take, let me just think a minute now, I can't think of the town. We got a unit citation. Isn't that awful? Here we go. Byhane. There was a town of Byhane which had a stream running by it. It was a mining town. And to the left were the quarries net up on this mountainside. And B Company was assigned to take that. And it was all uphill going to it. And it had been mined quite a bit, it was clear, and boy, they just got shot up something terrible. And we were assigned to taking to the village itself, which is a fairly large village, probably a little smaller than Saugerties, but it was a pretty good sized village. Now the snow is really deep, I'm telling you. And we didn't have any artillery off right at the beginning, so that they had 4 or 5 Mark IVs and the large ones there, the Tiger tanks in the village.
The enemy had those tanks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once in a while they'd run one down the street and fire a few rounds and back up, you know. So we weren't sure what the conditions were there, whether they had or lacking ammunition or what, because they didn't seem to attack us. And we'd penetrate, get into the village, and they'd kick us out. They did that 3 times. It took us 3 days before we finally captured it. Then they brought up some chemical mortar battalions. We couldn't get artillery. Well, I guess the snow, maybe it was too deep, they couldn't get artillery up there. And these mortar battalions, they laid a barrage on that village like you wouldn't believe. And finally drove the Germans out. And we took the village. But we got a unit citation for that. And then we pulled out. This was getting near the end of January now. And around January 26th, we pulled out and went into a rural area. I can't remember the little towns because there's so many of them. But we stayed there. The Roar River was holding us up. That's what had happened with all the snow on us. Spring was starting, and the snow was melting, and there's also some reservoirs that the Germans were controlling the water flow to keep the Roar flooded, so we couldn't cross it. So we were kind of inactive from about the 1st of February to the 23rd of February.
You had some spare time?
Yeah, well, we really needed it because our tanks only had 75s or 76s on them.
Yeah.
They wouldn't penetrate a Tiger or a Mark IV.
Did you run short of supplies while this was going on?
Not too badly, not too badly. We were up with the supplies. But this gave us a chance to get replacements in because we were down pretty good. A lot of frostbite and trench foot, pneumonia. The guys were getting sick. We weren't clothed properly. That was our biggest problem. We didn't have parkas or anything like that, especially the white ones we needed. The Germans had them, but we didn't. And so then on February the 23rd, the 29th Infantry, in the morning, at about 4 o'clock in the morning, they crossed the Roar River. And they expanded a beachhead there. They put a footbridge across, and our battalion went across, so we were the first to cross. And we branched off to the left down the river. There was a couple of towns that we had to take there. And along with the 29th, they were to our left and to our right. There was a city of Jublik, which is directly straight ahead where they were crossed. And during the night, they put an artillery barrage on that city and just leveled it. And there was a big concentration of Mark IVs there. They couldn't get out of the city. They captured them.
Mark IV was a German tank.
Yeah.
Were you in Germany now or still in?
We're in Germany now.
Right. Once you cross the Roar
River,
right.
It's in Germany.
Yeah.
So we went to the south and we took one little town, we had a little firefight there, but not too much. And then that night, we dug in just outside of that town. The next day, there was a little town of Muntz. The 29th Infantry had already reached the town, but they were in a hedgerow. That's where they ended. There was a field approaching the village of Muntz. It was a farm area, you know, farm village. And so what we were to do was push through the 29th and take the town of Muntz. And our company was assigned to it. And as we moved up to where the 29th Infantry was dug into foxholes along the hedgerow, it looked so peaceful. There was nothing out there, a few cows out in the field. And there was piles of, what do they call them, turnips, not turnips, beef, sugar beets. That's what they raised them and fed the cattle, you know, in the field and that. And, so we asked the guys in the foxhole there, you know, what do you think? And they said, well, gee, we haven't seen any activity, you know. But there was also a hedgerow running along the buildings that were going to attack. And they had a trench dug in there, and they were set waiting for us. So we started across the field, and we got probably 50 yards away from the edge of the town, and they opened up. And they killed our first 3 men in our squad, first scout, second scout, and a rifleman. And I was an ammo bearer for the DAR. I had a vest with all these clips of shells, 20 in a clip, you know. And we were running to the right. We're trying to get to a high point to fire down on them, you know, in the field there. And the BAR man got hit right through the chest here, right through clean. I dragged him behind a little knoll there, and I opened up his jacket now to see where he was hit. He was spitting blood, you know. And so I called for a medic, and a medic came over, and he was working on him. And I looked to my left, and I saw the platoon sergeant waiting for me to get the BAR and go up, you know. And I went to pick the BAR up, and the stock was shattered around, not the one that hit him, but another one must have hit it, and just shattered it to pieces. I couldn't use it. So I threw it down on the ground there, and I went back to where the BAR guy was wounded. And as I looked to the left again, I saw the platoon sergeant floundering around on the ground. He'd been hit. So I worked over to him, and he got hit right through the throat, cut his jugular. And I tried to hold him down, and the blood was squirting all over the place. Finally, the medic came over, and by the time he tried to get a shot of morphine in him, he had died. So Lieutenant Phillipson came over, our platoon leader, and he said, so our squad leader was Sergeant Barnett. He was a staff sergeant. He said, Barnett, you're taking over the platoon. He said, Battershell, who was the assistant squad leader, he took over the squad. Snyder, you're assistant squad leader. Here I go from ammo bearer for a BAR to a assistant squad leader.
What was your rank at that time?
What was it?
What was your actual rank at that time?
PFC.
PFC.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, Battershell was still a PFC. His paperwork was in to become a buck sergeant for assistant squad leader. And he hadn't gotten it yet, so we had 2 PFCs running the squad. Later on, we got our rank, a month or so. So many, a company was all out on so many in rank, you know. And a lot of the guys that got wounded were sent back, and they were still on the books with the company, so they couldn't promote anybody until something opened up.
So once you got your position, what happened then?
Well, I held the buck sergeant right on through to the end of the war. Battershell. It was funny, the squad, when I joined it, there wasn't one member left who came overseas in that squad. And at the end of the war, it was just Battershell and myself that were in it when I joined the squad, you know. On that day, though, you took your objective? Yes, we did, yeah. It was quite an interesting thing. They had a roadblock in the entrance of the town, and they had mined the road. And it was a gravel road, it wasn't macadam. One of the guys noticed, he saw a stem sticking up. He knew that there were mines in the road, so they sent back to the engineers. They had a log blockade in the entrance of town. God, the logs are enormous. And they had cables, they had concrete posts into the ground, a ring in it, and they had cables going around these logs, stacked up about 6-7 feet high, and welded together. So there was no way. We tried to get a tank up there to try and knock it down. He couldn't even budge it. And he, of course, it was a little too high too, because he had trouble getting a barrel over. He turned the thing around a couple times, but he said, "No, I don't want to do it." He said, "I'm going to lose something here." Mm-hmm. So they sent back for the engineers. So our squad was there. You know, there were 6 of us left, and so Battershell took 3 of them. I took 3. We went down each side of the street, started to clear out the houses. Well, before that, I had shot at, well, 2 of us had shot, and we knocked the German down. He came across the street, you know, they were coming up. And then the 2 others came and dragged them off, so we didn't know if we got them or not. And so then we started out, the 3 on each side. And on the right side, I was on the right side. I kind of got ahead of Battershell. And I had a couple open spots there, so I skipped them. I got down and I just passed a alleyway on the opposite side of the street, maybe 20 feet or so. It was a narrow, very narrow passageway between 2 houses. And two German soldiers come running out with a machine gun, and they were in the process of setting it up. We had engineers there now cutting the cable, and we had to shoot them. That stuck with me the rest of my life. That's the worst part of war. So we finally got it cleared, and we went through. The 3rd platoon, coming on the right side, they wound up in a cemetery behind a church, and they got hit pretty hard. They fired a couple of Panzerfaust in there. They were anti-personnel. They had a head on them like this. They put all the shavings that they used, they had in the mills and that, steel shavings, and ball bearings, whatever junk they had, they encompassed in these things. And the guys got sprayed with it. And they lost quite a few boys there too. They were hit hard in that little town where you thought they was going to take it easily, you know.
Yeah. Germans were putting up a big fight on their own ground.
Oh yeah, yeah. From the Ruhr to the Rhine, I think I have paperwork here that points that out. Let's see here. The Rhineland, yeah. You can see the number of casualties. They had 45,000, almost 46,000 casualties. Just in that one campaign.
In that one campaign?
Yeah, it was more than the Battle of Bulge, it was more than D-Day, and all the others. Yeah. Way up, because you can see the net here. Mm-hmm. And
was that for all the American forces at that time?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, let's see, the British were to our left. Yeah. But they were up near Holland, up that way, you know. Yeah. And, but we got, the 29th got hit hard there, too. They lost quite a few.
So you proceeded on then?
Yeah, yeah. We pulled out of there. It was funny. They brought cars in. They wanted to move us to another designated area. Mm-hmm. And we're riding back towards Jewett, and we see this staff car coming down with flags waving on it. Who's in it but Eisenhower and Churchill. Churchill with a cigar in his fingers.
That's something.
Then he waved to us, and we waved back.
That's amazing.
But then we went on to different areas. When we reached, our division was the first division to reach the Rhine once we crossed the Elbe River. And it was right, trying to think exactly where we came to, but there was 3 bridges there. We were trying to capture one of them. And the city of Neuss, which was right across from Dusseldorf. Dusseldorf was a pretty large city. the Rhine was quite wide at that point, probably maybe 3/4 to a mile wide. It's a slow running river, you know. And what we tried to do was capture one of the bridges. This is what I have here written up. We were, in fact, I was just coming off guard duty, and I was sleeping, and all of a sudden somebody's shaking me, and it's the lieutenant. And he said, "Snyder, come with me." He said, "We got to go up to headquarters." So we go up to the CP, where the man post was. And the G2 was there, and oh God, there was a couple of majors. And they had concocted an idea that we could possibly sneak through the city of Neuse. And we could, they were going to dress engineers and that, combat engineers as civilians, and get in on the bridge and try to go underneath the bridge and cut the wires and what have you, so they wouldn't blow it up. So they wanted to find a way to getting in. They wanted to run a patrol that night. And this is about 2 in the afternoon. So Phillipson says, he said he never believed in large patrols because they make too damn much noise. So he said, we ought to run a 4-man patrol. So myself and there was 2 guys from A Company and another fellow from our company. We were selected to go on a patrol. And we started out just when it got dark. And they had hand-drawn map for us. And they showed us where they thought the canal was. And they said, you got to find a way to get across it. So we started across. We went across the highway. I remember it was an apple orchard. There was a fence running along it, a wire fence. And we followed the fence and we crossed the road. And then there was a railroad track. So we decided before we left, we'd work in teams of 2. 2 guys would go, and then the other 2 would lay back, and then the next 2 would go and leapfrog back and forth, you know. And so the first 2 guys go over, and they trip a flare, and the machine gun opened up down the tracks. We just laid still for about, well, maybe 5-10 minutes. And no German soldiers came down to investigate or anything. But we could hear them talk, and they weren't that far away from us. So then I was with the guy who stood across, so the 2 of us went across. And it was raining. Then a few minutes later it started to clear up, and the moon came out. Then it was light as the devil, like daylight, you know. And we started crossing this field, and we finally ran into a stream, which didn't look like a canal to me, you know. And so it was about 15-20 feet wide. But there was paths on each side. They must have had some kind of boats where they just towed them with animals, with horses or whatever. And we worked up the canal a ways, and we found a footbridge across. Darn this thing. And I said, well, we got to watch out. This thing might be booby trapped. So we took turns working across, feeling for wires and stuff, you know. And it wasn't, thank God for that. So 4 of us got across that. And we started going towards Neuse, and the moon was out then, and we could see the buildings, the outlines of the buildings. And we finally came to a highway. And we started following the highway in, and before long we started hearing noises, and those Germans digging in. And we could actually hear them talk, you know. So we said, this is as far as we're going. We found what we wanted, you know, and the highway led right into the city. So we came back to the bridge, and then we swung to our left, because the A Company was on our right, and we were coming into their front, you know. And we had just about got back to where they were, back to that to the highway and the railroad track, and firefight broke out. Oh my God! What happened? Two trailers, German half-tracks actually, with artillery attached, were coming down to their front. The bazooka guy knocked the first one out, and he got the second one too eventually. But I guess he fired about 4 or 5 rounds, and 4 guys it was a moonlight, you know, and there was a wall there, and there was a raised yard, like, I don't know what the building was, I have no idea. But we were only maybe 200 yards from where this thing's erupted, you know. All of a sudden, these 4 guys come charging right at us. And, we yelled, Hindi ho, Max Schnell, you know, and they said, hands up, you know. And there was a standoff for a few minutes, or seconds, but one of them was severely wounded. And they couldn't see us because we were behind this wall. So they finally threw their weapons down and we captured them. We brought them back to A Company area. It was quite interesting.
So then you continued on right till the end of the war in Europe?
Yeah, we went from there in Central Europe. We came to that. And we wound up in the Harz Mountains. The 2nd Armored was moving ahead of us, and they were doing 30, 40, 50 miles a day, and things were moving real fast. And we didn't have the equipment to move us, so any German equipment we found that was drivable, you know, we just slap on our insignia on it and use it, you know. And just before we reached the Harz Mountains, we had a convoy there, about half of it was German equipment. So one time the convoy stopped, and we spaced out, you know, and the side road came in, and all of a sudden this command car, German command car, comes down this side road, and there's an officer in the back seat and the driver, and he sees all this German equipment, he pulls right in the column. So our Lieutenant Phillips said, he walks up to him, taps him on the shoulder, he said, give me your Luger. He had a beautiful Luger on him. I don't know what rank he was, but we captured him. But he was still stunned. He didn't know what was going on, you know.
He became a prisoner, huh?
Of course, the front was moving so fast, they didn't really know where we were.
Were you in the Harz Mountain when the war came to an end in Europe?
No, we crossed the Elbe River. We were in the Harz Mountains about 4 days, I think, 4 or 5 days.
You had a picture of you and your friends, your guys in the Harz Mountain there, right?
Yes.
Why don't you hold that up so that we can get it on the camera, okay?
Yeah.
Oh no, this one here, right?
Well, this is the squad.
Mm-hmm. Hold it up that way, if you will, Cliff.
At that time, Battershell was back in the hospital.
All right, he's going to zoom in on that now. Would you point yourself out there, Cliff? Are you the fellow kneeling on the right, I think?
Right here, yeah. This guy right here.
Okay. There you go.
Oh, looking from there would be left.
Uh-huh. Okay, that's good. Right, gotcha.
Well, it looked like a bunch of rogues, though. Our clothing was filthy. But we've been fighting, you know, for a couple of weeks. We just didn't get a chance to get a shower or nothing. And,
so you mentioned you crossed the Elbe River then?
yeah, we came down out, well, we went in the Harz Mountains, and the first night we were there, we flew up to a crossroad, and the lieutenants and the platoon sergeants were back to CP to be briefed on what was going on. And we heard this armor coming, and they said, they came back and they said, well, it's probably the 8th Armored Division, because they were going to circle around and come in from the other side of the Harz Mountains and cut the Germans off. And so now it's pretty dusk, and we were pretty well dug in. We had our tanks positioned on this crossroad, and the guys were digging in and that. A half-track comes down the road, and Sgt Dunn from the 3rd Platoon walks over the half-track. He's about ready to rock him on the building, on the side of the half-track to find out where they were from, and he saw the swastika on the side. He yells out, he says, crouch, you know. And he took, with that, the half-track took off, but they couldn't have had any communication with the column behind them. They went right back through battalion. They finally caught them back in regiment somewhere. But anyway, down the road comes next, maybe about 500 yards behind us was a tank, Mark IV. And they had a sleeve on the barrel. They didn't know that we were in the Harz Mountains. So they'd come down, and we had our bazooka guy set up, you know, right on the edge of the road, actually. He was probably 15 or 20 feet away from the tank when it came right to his front. and he let a round fire right into the treads, right through the treads, and he must have hit either the ammo or the gas in it, and that thing went up in flame, and it lit up the whole place. And with that, he loads again, and he moved down the road, and he got the half-track behind it. With that hit, the guy that was working with him who loaded the gun, he took off. So he loads the third round in, he goes down further, and he hit the second half-track, knocked that out. And, oh God, there were bodies laying all over the place there. So it really blocked the road.
You have a picture of that man. You've kept in touch with him over the years?
Yeah, yeah.
Could you show that picture up there?
Sure.
And, Alan can zoom in on
Ron
it.
Colburn.
The man's name is?
Ron Colburn, C-O-L-B-U-R-N-E. And he lives up in near Boston. Can you see that all right?
You got it?
Mm-hmm.
You got it? Okay,
Perfect.
that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. And you do keep in touch with him,
But he
right?
was 18 years old at the time. He just joined us, in fact, about a month before.
Yep.
And boy, he had guts, I'll tell you.
He got a decoration for that.
He got a Silver Star, yes, yeah.
I know that, Cliff, you got the Bronze Star, didn't you?
Yes,
Well,
yeah,
Could you
yeah.
tell us how you got that?
I got that on this patrol. All four of us received Bronze Stars for that.
By noose, where you found
Yeah,
the bridge?
yes.
The bridge over the canal?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I see. And where were you when the war came to an end in
Well,
Europe?
from there we went up to the Elbe River. We weren't too far away from it once we came out of the Harz Mountains.
Weren't the Russians coming over the Elbe River?
Well, they hadn't reached us yet.
Okay.
And the 2nd Armored got there ahead of us, naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And the other 2 regiments were supporting them. Our regiment was still back in the Harz Mountains. We finally pulled up there, and the 2nd Armored had went across, created a beachhead. But what they had done, they got a hold of a ferry. And they were ferrying their guys across. They had no equipment over there, really. The artillery was firing from the other side of the river, you know. And finally, the Germans knocked out the ferry with artillery. I don't know how they hit it, but now they had no way to get across. So the 83rd, the 329th Regiment, they went across and established a beachhead, and they put a bridge in. And we finally got the 2nd Armored out of there. So then we went across, and we started towards Berlin. And we were about, I guess, 40, 45 miles away from Berlin when they stopped us. And we're on the main highway that led right there. We wanted to go, let's go, you know.
Was it an Autobahn?
But, yeah,
Yeah,
but
huh?
there was an agreement between the Russians and the Americans. The Russians were supposed to take Berlin, Yalta, I guess, when they got together and made that decision.
But you really wanted to go to Berlin?
Yeah. Well, at night, we could see the sky lit up, and we could hear the bombs, even at 40, 45 miles.
45 miles away, you could hear the Russians assaulting
sure,
Berlin,
planes
huh?
flying over and stuff like that. They were bombing the heck out of it.
When did you get the word that Hitler had died?
I think we got that shortly after the war ended. Well, it was May 7th, actually, everything ended, and then on May 8th, they signed the armistice or whatever. Mm-hmm. And but around that time, we heard of Hitler. But in the interim, Roosevelt passed away, and what's his name came and took over as president.
Harry Truman.
Harry Truman, yep.
Did you, one time you and I had a conversation and you told me you never missed a single day of combat.
No, I never did, no.
So
From
you-
the time I joined the outfit
Yeah.
to the end of the war, I never missed a day.
So you weren't wounded?
3 campaigns I went through.
You weren't wounded?
I just slightly.
Did you get a Purple Heart?
No.
Did you get a Purple Heart?
No, I still, I got a wound right here.
Yeah.
Everybody was getting hit with shrapnel. There was so damn much shrapnel in the air with mortars and with artillery, and tanks and stuff like that. And guys would get nicked, and a medic would patch them up. I went back that night at Muntz there, where I got hit.
Mm-hmm.
There was a 50 mortar round came in. They call them knee mortars.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Germans had.
Yeah.
They were 50 caliber, or what do you call it? And it hit to my right. I just got a piece of shrapnel along the leg here, which cut it about 4 or 5 inches. They put some stitches in there. Now we're right back up to the company that same night.
And you didn't get sick anytime you were there?
No, 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 I was very lucky. What helped me in the bulge, every night I would change my socks. I had double underwear, tops of underwear, and then I had a sweater on and my shirt over top of that to keep warm.
Did you have any superstitions or things you did for good luck, or any of the other fellows had?
I imagine they did. I never really did, to be truthful. No, I never did. What we did with our socks, I want to finish that story.
Oh, yeah.
You had wet feet all the time, because the combat boots, they leaked like a sieve. And so we take our socks off at night and stick them down between the two pair of underwear, tops, you know. And of course, your heat from your body would dry them out. You take the pair out that you had in there and put them on, you know. So you just kept rotating it, and I think that helped me from getting trench foot or frostbite. And we always, every night, we tried to locate a house that we could set up, and we'd send back a couple guys at a clip for half an hour to an hour to get a good fire going. We shouldn't, but you had to do it. And then you could dry out a little, dry your socks too.
How was your food situation?
K rations.
How were they?
Well, I had no choice. We had a location in our pack here where we could put our gas mask. And we threw the gas mask away, and you could carry 3 K rations in there. So.
What do the K rations consist of?
Oh, eggs, bacon.
In a
They're
can?
little cans, about that big. And then you had crackers. You had a candy bar. Sometimes chewing gum. A lot of times you get a note from the girl that packed it, her address. Come and see me sometime, you know.
Were you able to get anything from care packages or packages from home or the USO or that kind of
Not
thing?
so much in combat, after the war was over.
Yeah.
But, I did get a couple from my mother. But by the time cookies and that got there, they were just crumpled to pieces, you know.
You didn't have any time when you were in the line for entertainment, but what do the fellows do to? Do you ever get out to
when we reached the Rhine, I was on guard one night with another fellow, Gray, his name was. And this first sergeant came down the street, and I guess they were sending guys up to Holland for 2 days for rest. And he grabbed the 2 of us. He said, "You guys want to go?" I said, "Sure." So we went up to Valkenburg, Holland for 2 days. They had a floor show, though. By the time we got there, it was just about over. And I met a kid from Saugerties, from Highwoods up there, George Myers, when I was at that show. And we chatted for a few minutes. He was in the artillery in another division, though.
Did he get back to Saugerties, as far as you know?
Yeah.
He did?
Yeah. Yeah, he came back. And I saw him, oh God, well, he died here about 4 or 5 years ago. But I saw him quite a bit. In fact, we used to pal around together in grade school. Went to a one-room schoolhouse up in Highwoods. Yeah.
When you came back from the service, what did you do?
Well, I came back in June of '46, and there wasn't any work around at all.
Were you in Europe the whole time till '46?
Yeah, 17 months I was there, yeah. Yeah, I shipped back and came discharged, Fort Dix.
Yeah.
But to the summer, I got out in June, and I did some handiwork jobs for people around the neighborhood, you know, trimming brush and cutting trees and stuff like that. Then in the fall, Lou Wilson owned a Woodstock garage. I stopped there. I had a problem with my car, and I stopped, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Nothing." He said, "I need somebody to pump gas and grease cars." He said, "I'll give you $35 a week, 5.5 days." I said, "I'll take it." So I worked for him for about a year, and then I left him and went with Allen Electric and plumbing up in Woodstock for a year. And then Bill West up there, when they were building the thruway at the time, and he had dump trucks on the thruway, and I went with him and drove dump trucks. So I worked with IBM in 1950.
So you worked with IBM then for the rest of your career?
Yep, 38 years I put in with IBM, yeah.
And you got trained by IBM, or did you take any GI Bill courses or anything like that?
No, I didn't take any GI Bills. What IBM had was voluntary education courses. And I started in the stockroom, actually, down at 590 Madison, New York.
Oh.
And I was in there about a year. Then they posted a sign. They used to post jobs on the wall. And so they were looking for custom engineers. I had no college, you know, but I was mechanically inclined. So I started taking physics, and I took the electronics and electricity 1 and 2. And I took the test and I passed it. I landed in a quandary, and they didn't know what to do with me, you know. So they said, well, electronics is going to be a big thing in the future. We'll send you to typewriter, electric typewriter school in Poughkeepsie. So I got an electric typewriter division. Stayed there for 9 years. Then I came to Kingston, and I got in the computer and spent the rest of my career in that.
You'd have written up your experiences here, haven't you, in writing? Did you keep a diary while you were in the service? Or
No, not really.
You just have a very good memory, right?
I think I'm pretty good, yeah. You know, it's funny, I can remember stuff back in those days better than I can something that happened 2 days ago.
Me too.
Is that the case?
Right, exactly. That's something for the young people to be aware of.
I can remember names, I can remember locations. I spoke to the Battle of the Bulge group, I belonged to them. And I walked through my whole career just like I did here. And those guys came up to me after and said, how the hell do you remember all this stuff, you know? I said, I don't know, it just seems to pop up.
How do you think your experience affected you in your life in the military?
I had a little problem when the war ended. Yeah, I couldn't sleep nights, and nightmares. When I came home, I lived with my mother. My father had passed away, and up in Highwoods, and I get nightmares, something terrible. God, one night I put my fist through the wall. Another time I pulled the dresser down. But they didn't have any kind of service they could provide for you at that time. They might have had, but not to the extent they do today. Because combat actually gets to you after a while. But fortunately, I hung on pretty good. It was quite an experience, I'll tell you. I was glad I was 19.
Well, Cliff, I want to thank you very much for sharing your reminiscences with us, and
thank you.
Send it on to the project, and thanks very much.
I hope I could add something to it.
Sure did. Thanks a lot.
Okay, you're welcome.